Hey there everyone, this is Evil Monkey here to bring you another build for Blair. This one's centered around his new mod, Killer Recipe. This one's more of a jack of all trades build compared to the last one, which was a wave clear build. This one's kind of good for generically everything. If you want a good general all-use build, this is the one for you. Also, because of that, it'll have a lot of mods that can be swapped around and things in the build that can be changed, but we'll go over that all in this video. So let's just hop right into it. Since Killer Recipe changes a lot of Blair's abilities, I thought we'd go over each one before we actually dive fully into the build. So now his first ability changed to Spicy Meatball, which throws a volley of fireballs based off your duration. This is changed from when you would throw flame zones at your feet. This one's pretty good for dealing with range. His second ability is now Temperature Check, which is similar to his previous ability, except this one no longer gives you a buff and instead just gives you mana based off your chef's touch count, which we'll go over in his passive in a minute. Burn Taste is effectively still the same, it's just you shooting a flamethrower out of your hand. Nothing changed there. His fourth ability though, instead of throwing a giant fireball, you now throw a volley of fireballs that only hit targets that you've locked onto. This one is also based off chef's touch. And finally, his passive. His passive slightly changed. So now instead of being based off flame zones, if you hit a target inflicted with burn, and you now get increased crit hit rate, crit damage, and power modifier increase. And if you attack an enemy or defeat an enemy with burn, you have the 50% chance to actually generate Chef's Touch, which is what his second and fourth ability now rely off of. Probably the most important section, the mod section. So for this section, this is a jack of all trades build. I'll also go over some mods that can maybe be swapped out if you want to swap them out for some defensive mods, so you can mix in a little bit more gunplay with the ability usage, or if you just feel like you're not tanky enough. So let's just dive right into it. Okay, starting out the mod section, let's go over the cooldown. So for this build, I only run Nimble Fingers and MP conversion. This does roughly get you enough cooldown to have your abilities up constantly. It'll just allow you to rotate through Spicy Meatballs, your first ability, and your third ability, Burn Taste. If you do want to spam only one ability though, you can exchange out Increased Health mod here, or Multi-Talented, which will work with Dimension, giving you enough cooldown that you can just spam your abilities off cooldown and continuously just use one ability. I don't really recommend this as I feel you do need a little bit of HP here. You also can technically remove one of the cooldown mods here if you want to mix in a little bit more gunplay. But if you do that, I would recommend swapping Dimension Specialist with Focus on Dimension. This will get your cooldowns a little bit lower so you can spam them a little bit more while still getting some gunplay in. But that's pretty much all for cooldown. Duration is kind of important in this build, as if you really want to utilize Spicy Meatballs, you get more fireballs launched during this, the more duration it has. As you can see, it scales off of the caster's duration by 17% of it. You don't really need to run more duration if you don't want to. You can exchange one of these out for defense if you really feel too squishy. I like running the double duration, but if you don't feel like you need more of your first ability, or you want to mix in some gunplay, it's perfectly fine to exchange one of these out. But skill extension and maximize duration are probably the two best ones. Once again, you can just exchange one of these out. So crit, probably one of the most important stats on Blair, as he is a crit-based character. With these three mods and mod in either your Reactor or your Arche Tree, you can easily hit 100% crit rate, just slightly over by about 1%, so it'll be about 101% crit rate, which is almost perfect. You can get this because of Blair's passive, which if you're hitting something with burn, which most of your abilities do inflict burn. In fact, I think every ability but your second ability inflicts burn. You get 25% increased crit rate, and you also get more crit damage, along with some more skill power modifier. So pretty much you only need these three to actually hit it, and this also maximizes your crit damage as well. There's not much to really go over there. If you, for whatever reason, don't want to run crit, well then I gotta ask why you're playing Blair, but then I guess you don't have to run these, but I 100% recommend running crit. Blair's one of the few characters that can actually hit 100% crit rate fairly easily. So going on from crit to the next set of damage mods, Dimension and Fire. You can interchange these from focus on fire to fire specialist or dimension specialist to focus on dimension. It really just depends on how much cooldown you want in your build versus how much damage. Either way, it doesn't change the build to too much, whether you replace this with specialist or focus. It's really just whichever one you want. I do recommend running both these, at least with one version or the other, because Blair's burn has really, really low scaling, so you want dimension specialist so you can get the skill modifier up above 100%, and then if you're doing ability damage, you always want skill power. There's no character in the game that does not want skill power that I can think of. It's just generally good. So why am I running increased HP over any other mod? Well, as I said in my previous Blair build video, Blair has really high scaling HP compared to pretty much every other Descendant. I think it's around 5th highest in the game, which is pretty high. Especially since the next person down has significantly less HP than him. But you can exchange this one out. I have run this build with this health mod replaced with multi-talented to get more cooldown. But I did feel too squishy, like I was going down too much. I do recommend running HP. Do not run shields. Shields are probably the worst one on Blair. You can run defense. That is okay, but HP is the best. So now that we're done with mods, let's go ahead and jump right into the Arche Tree. Grabbing the skill crit damage is important. Blair is a skill crit character. You do need this. You can also grab the hit rate versus crit as well, only if you do not want to run it in your reactor. Personally, I run double crit in my reactor, but you can exchange that out, and you can just run less defense in this build, and instead run this. The other important thing to grab is both purple skill powers along with the gold one. Is just more damage. Not really much to explain there. Also grab the duration up and the range up. The range up really only helps with Blair's flamethrower here, his third ability, but it is nice to have, and it's probably the best path along this tree to the skill power. Outside of that, everything else just goes into defense. Grab HP and a couple of defense up art nodes, and you're pretty much good. This is a pretty easy tree to follow. I'll just leave it up here for a minute so you guys can take a look at it. So for the reactor, there's really only one reactor type you can run, dimension. I said this in my last Blair video, but Blair really only has one reactor he can run because 3 of his 4 abilities, the 3 that do damage, are all dimension based. So you cannot run any other reactor type. But for the substats, I run double crit, hit rate, and damage here. That's what I like to run. You can, like I said earlier, exchange out the hit rate or something else. If you want to run the hit rate instead in your Arche Tree, that's perfectly fine. You can run it instead duration, which will help a lot with the build, or cooldown, which will also help with the build, or just straight up more damage if you feel like you need more damage. That's fine as well. You could run dimension or fire in that slot. I do recommend running crit damage though, as Blair once again is a crit character. This will just help you a lot, but these are probably, in my opinion, the best 2 stats to run is just double crit. Okay, on to components. So for this one, I recommend 3 different component sets based on what you want to achieve with the build. So the number one I recommend most if you're going for more ability heavy is Slayer. Slayer has really good skill power in it, and Blair doesn't have to worry about the mana cost at all because with temperature check, if you have your chef's touch stacks maxed out, he will always be able to generate your mana back. You don't even need those stacks maxed out, but he can always get mana back. Second one's Volcanic. Volcanic's pretty good if you want more of a gunplay mixed in with ability, because it gives a good firearm attack with a mixture of okay skill power rating. It's not as good as Slayer, but it's still good if you want the good mixture of gun with ability power. And Firebrand's the third one. This one is only, keyword only, if the enemy has really high fire resistance. But in that case, you probably shouldn't be running Blair, but it's good in that one scenario. For the best guns in this build, it kind of depends on what you want from the build. If you want more of an ability focus, I either recommend Peacemaker, because you can get a lot of movement speed, or Python for the same reason. Even though Python technically has slightly slower base movement speed when you have it equipped, you can also get Brisk Walk with it, and it has actually a pretty high base movement speed itself with it being an SMG. If you want more of a gunplay though, I'd recommend just pretty much anything mid-ranged. Most likely Last Dagger in current meta would be your best hope, as you're probably going to run Volcanics at then, and it's either a handgun, hand cannon, or shotgun. There's no real good shotguns for general use right now. There is for hand cannons and handguns, so probably Last Dagger or maybe Benevolent would be good. Outside of that, it's just pretty much anything mid-range to close range. Blair isn't good at far range, so you just want to run either close range or mid-range for guns. That's pretty much it. Either movement speed for ability, or anything close to mid-range for a gunplay mixed with ability. Playstyle isn't really set in stone for this build. It's pretty free-flowing on how you want to play it. There's no one set style, which is kind of the part of it being a jack of all trades build. Mainly, your first ability, though, should be used for anything ranged, or you want to take out from a distance. You can also use it for wave clear, but it's not as good as your third ability, the flamethrower, which is up fairly often if you follow the exact mods on this, and it's really good at wave clear. Your second ability, just regenerate mana using Chef's Touch. And then your fourth ability, I'd say for elites, as it's not very good at wave clear. You can kind of use it for that if you want to, but I don't recommend it as it costs a lot of mana and consumes all your Chef's Touch stacks. There's no real inherent playstyle. I usually personally play this rotating my first and third abilities, just because I enjoy casting the first ability, but you could pretty much just spam the third ability and that's pretty much all you would need to do for wave clear. But once again, it's pretty freestyle on how you want to play it. How do you get killer recipe? Well, it's pretty simple. You just go kill Pyromaniac until he drops it. You kill Pyromaniac on hard mode, he will eventually drop it. But if you do have a whole bunch of transient mods just sitting in your storage, especially if they're Andaline, you can go to the Module Master Silion and just re-roll them until you potentially get it. And those are two ways you get it. And that wraps up this video for the Jack of all trades Blair build. I appreciate y'all watching, and I'm sorry this build took a little bit longer to come out. I actually got sick before I could finish out this video, so it took a couple more days to finish out than I wanted. But if you did enjoy the video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, I stream every day on Twitch at 2 PM PST. I'll go ahead and throw the link down below. If you guys want to chat first Descendant or anything about the build, you can always hit me up there or in the comment section down below the video.